Every choice alters the path of fate. Khanfall, flavor text of Valorous Stance. Roughly 1,200 years before the events of the Mending, a titanic clash would take place in the skies above the world of Khans and dragons, Tarkir. Nicol Bolas, the Tyrant of Worlds, was exchanging blows with Ugin, the Spirit Dragon, in a battle that would determine not only the fate of Tarkir, but that of many planes. As the battle grew more intense, Ugin would call out to the dragons of Tarkir, who rushed to aid him in his battle against Bolas. This would prove disastrous, however, as Nicol Bolas had allied himself with the Khan of the Temur frontier, Yasova Dragonclaw, for this very moment. Yasova had laid a mystical trap, one that warped the minds of the dragons and caused them to turn against their progenitor. Overwhelmed, Ugin would be defeated and slain by Bolas, and his corpse would fall into the canyon below. Victorious, Nicol Bolas would depart from a Tarkir now deprived of its father of dragons. With Ugin no more, the dragon tempests, the very source of Tarkir's dragons, ceased. The various clans were able to hunt the remaining dragons into extinction, finally eradicating their ancient foes. The world was finally free of the ever-present threat from dragonkind, and the 5 clans were able to grow more powerful and become the dominant force of Tarkir. And Nicol Bolas was rid of yet another obstacle. When Khanfall returned to his home plane of Tarkir, he did so as a man teetering on the edge of madness. He planeswalked away from his home in a blaze of dragonfire, and on his journey across the multiverse, he experienced many things. Vol entered into the services of the ancient dragon planeswalker Nicol Bolas, witnessed the conflux of Alara, and was one of 3 planeswalkers initially responsible for the freedom of the Eldrazi on Zendikar. Throughout all of this, his sanity was stressed again and again, and his madness would manifest as voices that tormented his waking mind. One such voice claimed to be that of Ugin, and it is what led Sarkhan home. Nicol Bolas claimed to have slain the spirit dragon, yet the voice persisted. Alongside the specters in his mind, and a piece of the Hedron known as the Eye of Ugin, Sarkhan set out on a journey across his birthplane. Along the way, Sarkhan was hunted by the Khan of the Mardu clan, the Orc Zergo, who sought to slay Sarkhan for the circumstances surrounding the ignition of his planeswalker spark. Vol also found an ally in the Khan of the Jeskai, Narset, who was guided by visions to assist the planeswalker on his journey. This journey would reach its end at the very tomb of Ugin the Spirit Dragon, a canyon filled with bones that radiated magic. A nexus of mana flowed here, one that echoed across time. Here, Narset would die holding back Zergo, and Sarkhan would enter the nexus, vanishing from this Tarkir forever. Vol would be flung into Tarkir's distant past, a world where dragons filled the skies and waged an eternal war against the clans. After a chance encounter with Yasova Dragonclaw, the ancient Khan of the Temur, Sarkhan would learn that a golden dragon promised her that he could kill Ugin if only she led the way. Sarkhan realized that here, in Tarkir's past, was where Nicol Bolas would slay Ugin. Seeking to change fate and save Ugin's life, Sarkhan took on his draconic form and rushed off to find the spirit dragon. But he was too late to stop Bolas, who attacked Ugin just as Sarkhan arrived. The twin dragons would do battle in the skies above Tarkir, a conflict that shook the very foundation of the world. Then Ugin roared, and it was the roar of a force of nature, the roar of an entire plane. With this primal roar, Ugin would call to his aid all the dragons of Tarkir, who would swarm around Nicol Bolas and Ugin as the two clashed. What the All-Father of Dragons could not know, however, was that his progeny would be used against him. Yasova had not merely served to guide Bolas to Ugin, she would play a much greater part in the spirit dragon's demise. the Temur Khan weaved great magic below the horde of dragons. She cast a twisted, elemental spell that overcame all of their minds with a command to turn on the one who created them, to kill Ugin. Sarkhan was able to resist the spell only by returning to his human form, and as he plummeted to the ground, he could only watch in despair as Nicobolus dealt a death blow to Ugin, who would crash down to the chasm below. Nicobolus would only watch for a moment as his brother fell, before departing Tarkir, confident in his victory. Sarkhan was overwhelmed with grief in his failure, and his body was broken in several places. Despite this, he began making his way to where Ugin's body rested, determined to save the spirit dragon. Yasova would attempt to stop him, but Sarkhan unleashed a blast of fire to knock her back before approaching the dying Ugin. The ignition of Sarkhan's spark, his path across the multiverse, his madness, and his journey through time led him to this very moment, the moment that Ugin, a being older than worlds, lay dying, and Sarkhan would not permit that. He took out the Hedron shard that he collected from the Eye of Ugin, and channeled mana into it. Sarkhan realized that the Eye of Ugin didn't just serve as a seal on the Eldrazi, but as a place of rest and recuperation for Ugin himself. Though he didn't know how, he aimed to use the shard to help the spirit dragon. The Hedron grew and expanded, becoming a great stone cocoon that spread over Ugin's entire body. No longer was the father of dragons doomed to die. Now he rested within the Hedron cocoon and regenerated. With the fate of Ugin changed, so too was the fate of all Tarkir altered. In that moment, temporal forces shifted, and the time stream tore Sarkhan away as the history of the world was modified. In the original timeline, Ugin's death meant the end of the Dragon Tempests, which are the source of Tarkir's dragons. With no new dragons to replace those that died, the individual clans were able to hunt them down and eventually exterminate all those that remained. In this new timeline, Ugin's descent into stasis did not slow the Tempests at all, and by some accounts they became more intense in his slumber. In just a few short years, the constant influx of new dragons would become a problem that pushed the 5 clans to the breaking point. The Abzan houses were constantly losing ground against the dragon Dromoka and her brood. Though small victories were occasionally won, more dragons would appear each day, and the situation seemed hopeless. Dagatar, the ancient Khan of the Abzan, would go out to meet with Dromoka in an attempt to seek peace with the dragon's brood. The Khan would learn that Dromoka saw the Abzan practice of the kin trees and their spirits as necromancy, and if any peace would be found between dragons and the Abzan, the practice must cease. Though it broke his heart and spat in the face of tradition, Dagatar saw no other way to save his people. He shattered his mace, the remembrance, crafted from the ember of the first tree, and decreed that all kin trees be uprooted. With this act, Dagatar surrendered the Abzan over to their new master, Dromoka. Some in the clan resisted, and Rayhan would take control of a splinter faction as a new Khan, seeking to still fight back against the dragons. But this was a battle that could not be won. Around this time, the Sultai brood were in an equally hopeless position. The Khan, Tassiger, was a spoiled child who would demand the world of those he saw as his subjects, and often threw tantrums. This led to Tassiger greatly insulting a high-ranking Rakshasa, Kudal. As a result, the Sultai lost their pact with the Rakshasa, and the Naga would abandon the clan as well. This left them without their strongest allies, and no way to control their undead servants. Under assault from Abzan and Mardu raids, and suffering the attacks of dragons, Tassiger turned in desperation to a pact with Silumgar, bringing the dragon an offering of his own jade throne, covered in gold and jewels. Tassiger hoped that this would appease the dragon, and knelt down in the mud for mercy. Shu Yun, the Khan of the Jeskai, foresaw that the intensifying of the dragon tempests would lead to the end of the clans if nothing was done. In an attempt to improve their chances of survival, he called together the Khans of each of the clans to work together to help form a plan. When all of the Khans had assembled, they learned from Yasova what part she played in attempting to kill Ugin. However, before they could form a true plan, the monastery they were meeting in fell under attack. Two separate broods, the Ojutai and the Silumgar, were working together to attack all of the assembled Khans. Tarkir, attempting to curry favor with Silumgar, had betrayed his peers and fled after leaving the dragons to the meeting. With the various Khans dispersed, the Khanfall could truly begin. As the dragons under Silumgar and Ojutai attacked, Rayhan would give up her life to save the other Khans. With her death, the Abzan were truly no more. Shu Yun, seeing no other way, offered up his own life, as well as the lives of every Ghostfire warrior, every dragon slayer in the clan, in exchange for Ojutai's mercy. Shu Yun died, and Ojutai took control of the Jeskai. Tarkir, for his betrayal, returned home outraged. He had hoped that by leading Silumgar to the other Khans, that he would be offered a place of honor in the new order. Instead, to his horror, he discovered that Silumgar intended to keep him nearby at all times, as the dragon's finest trophy. As she was returning to her own territory, the Khan of the Mardu, Alesha, would have a chance encounter with the dragon Kolagon. The great beast met with her for just a moment before flying on. Alesha realized then that the dragon did not care to rule over anyone, and instead only demanded that she keep up as it raced across the plains. Alesha and her warriors decided then to abandon the Mardu name and follow Kolagon. And Yasova, Khan of the Temur, would approach the dragon Atarka in desperation and offered to feed the beast if it agreed to spare her clan. Caring only for what it could devour, Atarka agreed. 1,280 years later, Khanfall would step back onto the slopes of Tarkir. Here, he found a world vastly different from the one he left. Bones no longer littered the ground, and instead dragons filled the skies of Tarkir. No longer did the clans battle with one another for dominance of the world. Instead, the ancient clans were no more. Words like Khan were even forbidden from being spoken. The people of Tarkir, under their dragon lord masters, were little better than slaves, even if some had it better than others. The prideful Mardu were no more, instead reduced to raiding bands of cannibals that followed the dragon lord Kolagon across Tarkir, destroying everything in their path. Silumgar lounged at the center of an empire even more decadent than the Sultai had ever been, and the dragon's temper often led to the deaths of its servants. Atarka proved to have an appetite like no other, and her hunters scoured the land in desperation to keep her sated. The people that served her were constantly on the brink of starvation, as the dragons always had first pickings of a meal. Dramoka would largely assimilate the people of the Abzan well, uniting them under her banner. Children were taken from their families to be raised to serve the dragons, and anyone caught practicing their old traditions were executed. And Ojutai, though he put on the facade of a wise teacher, corrupted the Jeskai into a perversion of what it was before. The old histories of Tarkir were suppressed, replaced by Ojutai's new history. The Tarkir of Khans was no more. This is a Tarkir ruled by dragons. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like or sharing this video with your friends. If you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell button, you'll be notified whenever I upload new videos. If there's a topic you'd like me to discuss, feel free to let me know in the comment section below. Finally, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll have an early idea of what my next video will be. Thank you again, and have a good day.